Good evening. Welcome to the Judiciary and Administration Committee. It is Tuesday, June 4th, 2019 at 6:05 p.m. So, welcome everyone. Councilmember Jessica Olson is excused this evening, so we will move on to the first item on the agenda is 19-0447, an ordinance to amend section 42-47 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of La Crosse regarding the room tax. And I have the first person to speak would be A.J. Frells, 4110 Veterans Memorial Drive. So A.J., would you come forward? Thank you.
I believe that's it, yep. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and speaking on behalf of the Explore La Crosse or La Crosse County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Actually, I have a statement that I will read. The LCCVB recognizes that the City of La Crosse would like to raise the room tax rate from 8% to 9.5% and reduce the LCCVB's portion of room tax received from the City of La Crosse from 35 to 27% of the newly adjusted room tax rate of 9.5%. A total annual revenue impact to the LCCVB of approximately $78,000. It is our understanding that both adjustments, the room tax percentage paid to the LCCVB and the adjustment of the room tax, would go into effect on October 1st of 2019. With a compelling urgency to move forward with the La Crosse Center expansion and in the spirit of collaboration, the LCCVB Board of Directors voted to accept these changes with the intent that the reduction in funding to our budget would keep the room tax from going to 10% or higher, and a sunset clause would be put on the room tax percentage going back to 8% in no more than 20 years. We thank Mayor Cabot for his willingness to hear the voice of our members and consider alternative options prior to the final recommendation presented this evening. As we move past this evening's legislation of adjusting the room tax percentage and the percentage paid to the LCCVB, I graciously oblige you to reflect to two emails I recently sent to Mayor Cabot and the council members. One on April 26th, outlining the phenomenal success the LCCVB has had in developing economic vitality of the city through increasing local tourism and bringing new events to the La Crosse Center. The second, from May 22nd, recapping some reasonable needs related to our lease and building renovations. To ensure we can continue to be successful in promoting the area and in increasing tourism dollars necessary to fund the debt, we request that the city not decrease our funding below the proposed 27%. In addition, once the debt service is paid, we ask that the percentage of room tax collection distributed to the LCCVB return to 35%, as the room tax percentage will return to 8%. With the proposed cuts to our budget, changes will be needed to make up for this shortfall. Of course, it is our intent to limit any cuts in the marketing area. As such, we ask that our lease with whom we pay to the City of La Crosse be locked in at the current rate. In addition to the lease, we ask that the needed renovations to the building we currently occupy that we have discussed with the Parks and Rec Department and the mayor be done at no cost to the LCCVB. In closing, I first want to thank you for listening to our position. Secondly, I want to reiterate that the LCCVB is willing to adjust our budget and agree to the 9.5% room tax to help with the funding of the La Crosse Center project. We understand the urgency of moving this forward. And lastly, down the road, when considering other items I brought up this evening, such as the lease, not reducing our portion of room tax lower than 27%, and the building renovation cost, I respectfully ask that the city takes into consideration the impact the LCCVB has in attracting visitors and thus the overall economic impact of the city of La Crosse. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no one else signed up to speak, so we need to have, go ahead, Councilmember Podesky.
I just have a couple of quick questions, AJ. If you can live with the changes you proposed and we can live with those changes, is your staffing or benefit pay raises and stuff, is that going to be affected in any way? Are you guys going to be able to handle everything and still be comfortable in doing things and keeping your employees happy?
The short answer is yes. I'll make it work.
Okay, I guess that's the main question I had. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Need a motion? Second. Motion to approve by Council President Gall, seconded by Councilmember Weaver.
Okay.
Go ahead, Council President.
There is an amendment in Legistar that was referred to by the Speaker, and I will just fill in what the changes it indicates as changes from 11 to 9.5%, and also includes the sunset language in 20 years where it would revert to 8, and it puts the ordinance shall take effect on October 1st, 2019, and I would move the amendment.
There was a motion by Council President Gall and Council Member Podesky. Is that what you're going to do? Is make the second?
Actually, just a second.
Okay. This is on the amendment. Okay, on the amendment. Okay. Councilmember Weaver. Okay, go ahead.
President Gall, where does that go with what AJ had talked about as far as the other things he had asked for?
Right now, we're dealing with the resolution that we have in front of us as far as the room tax is concerned. I do know that these other things are going to be coming down the pipe, and we will certainly take that into consideration at that time, but that is not for consideration this evening.
Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, Mayor Cabot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just echo the appreciation to the La Crosse County Convention and Visitors Bureau for we've put together, I think, a pretty reasonable compromise here. I don't think any of us are probably happy about it, which probably is a testament to that it's a good compromise. So with the proposed 9.5% and the changes to the distribution, this does generate roughly $1.3 million of room tax to be dedicated towards the debt service for the La Crosse Center expansion. And that was really our goal from the beginning, was to find ways to come up with funding that did not have to be property tax levy. So I know it's a separate piece of legislation that Finance and Personnel will take care of on Thursday, but I just wanted the J&A committee to be aware that we've had ongoing conversations. I think we have gotten to a good point. And just very briefly to touch on Councilmember Podesky's questions, we are in active discussions with them about their lease. We are in active discussions about the building. And just as a reminder, the Common Council establishes the room tax. It will be the Room Tax Commission that will address the distribution. So if there's any perhaps fine-tuning of that percentage, the 27 or 35 or something in between, that is the purview of the Room Tax Commission, which that'll hopefully happen later this month. So with that, I would encourage this body to pass the amended ordinance so that we can continue to move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the amendment. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And on the main motion? Move as amended. Excuse me. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. All right, let's go on to 190574, an amended ordinance to amend various sections 10, Article 10 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of La Crosse regarding outdoor food stands and mobile food units. And I know there was a question, Council Member Kalo, would you like to speak on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask that this committee refer this for 90 days. The parties involved have come to the realization that it most likely will not start until the next license year, and that we would like 90 days to just make sure we get this right and it doesn't have to come back several times with several amendments. Thank you.
Okay. Motion by Kalo to refer for 90 days, seconded by Council President Gall. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Referred for 90 days. Thank you. 190593, an ordinance to create section 4-20 Code of Ordinances of the City of La Crosse to regulate online ordering and curbside pickup of alcohol beverages. Need a motion for a public hearing. Motion by Councilmember Podesky, seconded by Councilmember Weaver. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Lynn Patty, 4622 Mormon Cooley Road, representing Walmart. If you could turn your mic on there. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm not sure that I have all of the material that you're considering, so please help me by briefing me on the ordinance that we are considering.
So you haven't seen the legislation at all?
We had trouble pulling it up. I apologize.
Okay. I don't have a copy of it in front of me as well, so, but you're in favor of the legislation changes? Okay. Do you want to? Yeah. Maybe City Clerk, would you like to speak on the legislation to help her out? I don't have it in front of me.
Thank you.
Well, the legislation that was before the council a couple months ago was to prohibit this activity. And then when that failed, through the discussion, it was determined and recommended that we bring back an ordinance so that the City of La Crosse can have their own plan and procedure for the online ordering and curbside pickup of alcohol beverages. So the police chief and I worked together to create the ordinance that's in front of you. We use the City of Madison as the model, and then we did incorporate additional language from Brookfield and Neenah, and so that is what is before you is an ordinance to allow it based on the conditions that are set forth in the ordinance.
Thanks. Our goal with this ordinance was to create some consistency. So if there does come a time where you want to approve one of these, everybody that's submitting an application has to do it the exact same way. So it's easier for us to enforce. It's easier for the clerk to look at and make sure every application has what they need, and it's easier for the council to say we're treating everybody exactly the same. So that's what this ordinance is intended to do. Is to ensure everybody's playing by the same rules, and if somebody is doing this, we know how they should be operating, and it's easier for the officers to enforce it then.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Podesky.
Chief Tischer, I apologize. I don't have a copy of it in front of me. Again, can you refresh our memory or my memory what the limitations would be?
So it's basically if you place an online order, any orders placed after 2 p.m. can't be picked up till the following day. The pickup times will be between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. The person providing the alcohol has to check for the purchaser's birth date, identification, license plate of the vehicle in which it's being loaded into to make sure that they're the owner and it's that they're of age to be able to drive. There's a couple other things in here. Everybody needs to take some kind of a photo image of the person and the license plate so we can ensure that if something does happen, we can go back and make sure that that's the person who actually bought the alcohol.
So Walmart's understanding of this ordinance?
just a minute. Are you done? Okay, go ahead. Okay, sure, thank you. Go ahead.
So Walmart's understanding of this ordinance, my home office understanding of this ordinance, as they reached out to me, was that we would have to take a photo of every ID of every person that's in the vehicle and maintain a copy of that ID on file for 6 months, as well as a photo of the license plate of the vehicle and maintain that on file for 6 months as well, and then not release any alcohol to the ordering person until the following day if that order were placed after 2 p.m. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. They must maintain it for 30 days. State statute is pretty specific that you can't transport alcohol in certain circumstances. So if there's 5 people in the vehicle and there's 4 minors, we're going to need to know that. So that's why we need to make a record of everybody who's in the vehicle.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I did reach out to the city of Madison based on the ordinance that they have there, and with the restrictions that they for this ordinance, there are actually only 2 retailers that are able to function with this ordinance in the entire city of Madison. I appreciate that there is consideration for this ordinance, but it is extremely invasive to our customers and extremely difficult to operate as a retailer with this ordinance. It is likely that Walmart will not be able to sell alcohol if this ordinance is passed as is. I wonder if that is in fact the intent.
Go ahead, Chief, if you want to respond.
So this doesn't prohibit anybody from going inside and buying alcohol. I mean, that's not the intent of this ordinance. One of the requests we received from a different seller, their request before this ordinance was even proposed mirrored exactly what this ordinance says. They were willing to do that. So to say that this can't be done is, I don't think that's correct, because somebody can already do it because that's what they proposed before we even had this ordinance come forward before you. So, and it doesn't limit anybody from going to Walmart, walking inside and purchasing alcohol.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Newmeister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you tell me, just give me a kind of a highlight, what's the 2 p.m.?
Is this directed to our
The
speaker?
chief?
No, the speaker, because we can talk afterwards, I guess, too, but.
Yeah, okay, I can wait.
Okay. Unless you want to speak, in the question. Okay, then go ahead. I'll allow it. Fine. So.
Thank you again. For my knowledge, as well as Walmart's and whomever's, is there a reason that we picked out 2 o'clock for the cutoff time? I know if somebody works, day shift or something, they probably work till 3, maybe 5. I'm just wondering where we come up with the 2 o'clock.
So they can actually pick up alcohol until 6 p.m., but it has to be ordered the day before. So the 2 p.m. was a ordinance or a stipulation in the Madison ordinance, the Neenah ordinance, some other ordinances. And the philosophy behind that was we want to make sure that somebody doesn't order something in the morning and then on their way home from school stop and try to pick it up and have their buddy throw it in their trunk or whatever. So, I mean, anybody can still pick it up until 6 p.m. as long as they order it the day before.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Podesta.
Thank you. I guess this question is for Chief Tischer. When you talk about photos of the other occupants, are you talking like a father and mother and 3 kids?
Well, to treat everybody the same or fairly, we need to follow what the ordinance says. How do we know that they're the father, the mother? We don't know that until we actually ask and check their IDs, or until the clerk checks their IDs. I mean, it could be the neighbor. The kids gave the neighbor some money and says, "Hey, this is my dad," and in reality, it's not. whatever. I mean, there could be a million different scenarios.
But if they could still go in the store and not have their picture taken, why would somebody who's buying for minors keep them in the car and try and do it in the drive-through? That's what I'm struggling with here on this.
You'd be surprised what people try to do because, there's a lot of reasons maybe. I mean, there's surveillance at Walmart. If you go in Walmart and buy alcohol, there's a photo of you. There's a photo of you in every store you go into just about in this city. So it really doesn't matter if you're getting your photo taken out in the parking lot because you're still buying alcohol, or if you have your photo at the cash register when you're checking out.
No, I get the photo of the person buying, but as far as if he went in and bought it, there could be people in the car. I mean, we used to throw like 8 people in the trunk and go to a drive-in movie. So I understand, trying to sneak stuff in and stuff like that. But I don't, I guess I don't know why if they're in the car, why if you had 3 friends with them, I mean, then they would just go inside the store and carry out.
Right, but what we're trying to do is prevent that sale of alcohol inside a vehicle in regards to the extension of their premise. If you know that you're going to get carded or have your ID checked out on the street or in the parking lot, we're trying to prevent these drive-up alcohol sales from getting out of control with friends of clerks and friends of people that work at the stores just coming out and throwing alcohol in their buddy's car and taking off. I mean, we have to have some kind of way to check everything, and this is one of the only ways to do it. And this is the same type of check that is working in Madison, it's working in Neenah, it's working throughout the state, so it's working in Brookfield.
Okay, Ms. Patty, did you want to continue on your questions?
I just want to say one of the reasons that it's, to the chief's point, one of the reasons I think that he's saying that it's working is that retailers aren't utilizing it. It's, if you want to create an ordinance that's going to work for retailers, then make it a different ordinance, because I don't think that this ordinance is an ordinance that's working. If you want to be a city council that's making an ordinance that works, this is not an example of an ordinance that works for the city. I guess that's all that I have to say.
All right, thank you. Oh, go ahead. There's a question, Lynn.
I'm assuming that the only one, as far as you're concerned, would work is no check, no nothing. But I think there has to be some sort of happy medium here. We voted down the original, the not allowing it. I think at least this opens up the door. It allows us to start the process. We can always fine tune it as we move forward, but at least it allows Aunt Joanna, who can't get out but still wants alcohol, the opportunity to get it being delivered or picked up or however it works for her. It's at least a start, and I would hope that you don't take it as, the city trying to not allow this, because I think they've worked hard to try to find some sort of solution to appease everyone. Is it perfect? No. But is it a start? Yes. And I would hope we move forward with it and at least give this a shot.
Go ahead, Councilmember Podesky.
Could you explain again how that was going to work the last time? I thought it was going to be very workable. That's why I don't know if you could you just explain it again, how it would work?
I can. I appreciate Scott Neumeister's comments. I appreciate that. If it can be altered once this passes, if this passes, I appreciate that as well. I guess I don't know how that works, if that in fact is the case, if it can be altered once this passes. I think that potentially could be an option. So the way this would work with Walmart is that a customer would put in an order online, and then as they reach the store, their ID is checked and the alcohol is put on reserve in the store and is not released to the vehicle until their ID is checked at the store. It's not even brought to the car until their ID is checked, the same way that their ID would be checked inside the store. And the person checking their ID, by the way, has to have a valid alcohol license themselves. So that person has to be approved to be a seller of alcohol. It is not just any associate in the building. It has to be someone who is approved to have an alcohol license themselves, so that they can approve that alcohol sale. They are the one that has to check the ID and make sure that it is a valid ID, make sure that that person is not intoxicated before they sell alcohol, and make sure that that person does not have any individuals with them that are underage, if just the same as if they were in the store. If someone was in the store and was with someone who was a friend who looked to be underage, they would have to be carded as well. It's the same thing that we would do at the car that we would do inside the store.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Go ahead, Council President Gall.
Just for my own, just so I understand, are you registered, you were registered to speak in favor or against?
In favor.
But you don't like it? The way it's written?
I don't the way that it's written, because I don't think that Walmart, I know for a fact that Walmart is not ready to sell alcohol with this particular ordinance the way that it is written right now.
Okay, and just to clarify then, you or corporate or whoever the hell is talking about this has not read the specific ordinance that we are looking at this evening. Is that correct?
I was not able to pull the entire thing up, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No, need a motion to close public hearing? Motion to close public hearing. Councilmember Weaver moves to close public hearing, seconded by Council President Gall. Go ahead, Council President.
This is a difficult issue, and I think there's a lot of questions here that remain. Obviously, the representative of the only store that's been here on these issues has some questions about what's in front of them, and I believe that in listening to the members of this committee, there are some questions here as far as how far in we're reaching on this and what exactly it is that we're looking to do. And I would strongly suggest that we may want to, and I'm going to make the motion that we refer this for 30 days to give the public the opportunity to look at what it is we're considering, and to give the committee members and council members the opportunity to look at this to make sure that we are going down the road that we want to go down. So I'm going to make a motion to refer.
Motion by Council President Gall to refer 30 days, seconded by Councilmember Podesky. Discussion? Go ahead, Councilmember Newmeister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I will vote and support that. I think it's also important that they obviously did their homework on this as well, and they've reached out to other communities, and I applaud them for the efforts they did as well, because we went from nothing to something, and at least we were getting the ball rolling, and I would hope that we don't lose sight of this. But I agree with the 30 days is not going to hurt, but I'm assuming they would rather have it the other way, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Council President Gall.
I don't disagree. I mean, obviously, the clerk and the chief and you all put a lot of work into this, and I appreciate that also. But while I understand that, I think that a referral is appropriate in this instance, because I think that this is an interesting and somewhat divisive issue. And I think it's important that we all understand what it is that we're doing, because we all know that if we put this out there and it doesn't work the way we think and everything else, we can always amend it or change it or do what we want to do. But we also know that a lot of times these things just go forward and then nothing happens with them after that, and they really don't work as well as they were intended, possibly for the city or for those who might be utilizing it. So I would suggest right now, we don't have an issue. as much as I mentioned last time, because nobody can do this until we actually do something or to prove it separately, and we're not going to do either. So I think that the taking 30 days to take a good hard look at this, anybody who's for this or against this, and the general public will get the opportunity to review this and see what they like about it or don't like about it, and at least be able to voice that opinion with some confidence in what they're talking about. And I think that's really important going forward on this. And I think it's important that the council members get the opportunity to look at this and make sure, if it's the exact path we want to go on, or if there's some suggestions we might want to make in it, or if we're good with it. Either way, I think that the referral is appropriate, and I would urge you to support.
Question for City Clerk Terry Lurkey. This was posted in La Crosse Tribune, correct? This ordinance information?
Well, the ordinance was not published in the Tribune. It was posted online with, in Legistar.
Okay.
And I did speak with Walmart's attorney a couple weeks ago, and they asked me about this proposed ordinance, and I directed her to Legistar, and she had already done some research on it. So while it's not published in advance, it has been posted in advance.
Okay. So were there any questions by the attorney for Walmart? Yeah.
Well, she was just asking what the status is of the city regulating online ordering and curbside pickup. And she was aware of the ordinance that failed. And so I told her about the ordinance that was pending before council, and she indicated she was going to notify Lynn Patty. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we have referral for 30 days. All those in favor, say aye. One no? Your aye? Aye. Aye. Everybody aye? I think there's been enough information on this, so I will vote no on that. I think, we've had enough information, and I think between the police department and our clerk's office, they've worked hard on this, and I think they've reached out to other communities. So one no would be District 1. Thank you. So motion was to refer for 30 days. Thank you. Let's go on. 190629, and ordinance 2 creates sections 4-51, 4-115 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of La Crosse to establish the procedure to amend premises description for alcohol beverage licenses. So we do have need a public hearing again. So we need a motion for a public hearing. Okay, motion by Council Member Weaver, seconded by Council President Gall to have a public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. And Ms. Patty, would you like to speak again on that?
I don't know that there's a point since we,
Pardon me?
I don't know that there's a point right now since we voted
Okay.
to refer or
Yeah.
to,
I just called on you because you did sign up, so.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Okay. So, motion to close public hearing. Motion by Councilmember Newmeister, second by Councilmember Weaver to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Okay, so, need a motion?
I'd like to speak on that.
Okay, go ahead, Terry.
While this issue did prompt me to write this ordinance is not just specific to this situation. We do get requests from existing licensees that want to amend their premise description. And it might be because they're putting an addition on, or maybe just a remodel, and they need to come to the council for an amendment of their premise description. This ordinance is one that I created to establish an ordinance for that process, and also a fee for the process. And the fee is going to the Finance Committee on Thursday night. So regardless of if the previous ordinance is voted up or down, I would still like to have this ordinance in place. Currently, we just have people bring a letter, explaining what their amendment is. This is actually going to be creating a form and an application where they have to set forth more details. So we wanted to create an ordinance for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, motion by Council Member Podesky, was it? Okay. And seconded by Councilmember Weaver. Okay, go ahead, Council President Gall.
Terry, you must have read my mind because that's exactly the path I was going to go down here. Now, we're not, by approving this one, because as per your explanation, we're not accidentally opening the door on something else. This other one is still going to have to go in place before we would consider this. We're just clarifying the other procedure here, correct?
Right. This is just a process for anybody to ask for an amendment of their premise description.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion. So all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right. 190659, an ordinance to amend subsection 115-1110 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of La Crosse, transferring certain property from the Planned Development District specific to the Planned Development District specific, allowing for additional garage structure at 1 River Place Drive. And I don't believe I have the speaker on that. So motion by Councilmember Newmeister to approve, seconded by Councilmember Weaver. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Let's see here. Let's skip down to 190682, an ordinance to amend subsection 115-110 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of La Crosse, transferring certain property from the single-family district to the commercial district, allowing restaurant at 2225 16th Street South. And I have two that have registered in favor of the legislation. Teresa Kearns, 4162 Pfeiffer Valley Road, La Crescent, and Doug Kearns, also on the same address, in favor of the legislation. So, a motion, please. Motion by Councilmember Podesky, seconded by Councilmember Newmeister to approve. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, let's go back to 190675, application of Beverly Scott Lawrence for a conditional use permit allowing storage buildings in a heavy industrial zoning district at 232 Hood Street. And I need a motion for a public hearing. I have two speakers that signed up. So I need a motion for a public hearing. Okay, motion by, I think it was Councilmember Podesky, seconded by Councilmember Weaver for public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are in public hearing, and I have two that have registered in opposition of the one in favor of the legislation, but only here, just a minute here. Gotta get those right papers here. Excuse me, with the wrong sheets here. 675, okay. Two to speak in opposition of the legislation. So the first one, now I don't know, Ms. Scott, if you had wished to speak in favor of the legislation or not, but I will go ahead with the opposition for now. So Kirk Donsky, 2925 Byre Lane, La Crosse, representing Northern Battery.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Kirk Donsky. I represent Northern Battery. I am at 1546 Miller Street. That's where our warehouse is, which is about just a little under 200 feet from the property. The reason for our concerns about the plans for the buildings of storage is that we have a concern with that actual intersection at Hood and Miller. And if you look at the drawing of that property, the storage sheds are going to come out to almost to the corner. And there currently is quite a bit of congestion at that corner already. And we've had accidents in the past at that corner where people tend to cut that corner significantly. and you're going to develop a blind spot with that particular building that's there now or would be there. The setbacks with the current building is somewhat acceptable, but this would be a significant change to that spot. The other thing is that we just would also express the interest of having a viable business in the the industrial park versus just storage units. But I would suggest that if there could be a delay, I think it would be in everybody's best interest to consider viewing that particular, I don't know if you really call it an intersection, but it's a turn where there's no parking on either side to allow people to make that turn. It just, I see, could be a problem in the future.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Meister.
Thank you. I have a question, and I'm hoping that this may help you, but Jason, I'm assuming this would go through the design review process, and that would be something that would be dealt with at that time?
Go ahead, Mr. Gilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, heavy industrial uses don't go through design review, but they would be reviewed by the Buildings and Safety Division as part of their building permit application, and they'd have to be code compliant with regard to vision triangles at intersections. And those vision triangles are, as I understand it, are measured at the intersection of the two converging right-of-way lines, 20 feet in each direction, and then there's like a hypotenuse that's drawn, so that triangle, you can't do anything in that triangle. So they'd have to comply with that.
Anything else?
Yes, thank you. So is it your feeling that that would be dealt with and that shouldn't be an issue then moving forward if this would pass?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole purpose of that ordinance, is that 20-foot vision triangle has been accepted as a safe standard for these intersections.
Excuse me?
Okay.
I mean, wouldn't that have been addressed at the time the property was drawn up initially? Because it looks fairly significant as you look at it right now.
Okay. Were you able to come to the City Planning Commission on it yesterday at all?
I didn't know I could come to that meeting.
Okay.
I was told that this was the meeting to come to, so
Okay.
that's why I came to this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The drawings that we tend to get with these conditional use permits are not always the final construction document. A lot of times they're conceptual layouts, so the Buildings and Safety Division, will take a look at whether or not this meets the zoning code requirements, and they will require adjustments to make sure that vision triangle is met per the construction documents. So what you see on the diagram may not be the final, they still have to comply with the ordinances that are in place.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker in opposition would be Kurt Kopp, 212 Hood Street, Dynamic Concrete Resurfacing. Go ahead, Mr. Kurt.
Hello, I'm the building owner next door to the proposed storage shed area. I'm in opposition to this because over the years I've been there, we tend to struggle with some water runoff, which isn't a huge issue, but this last winter, it's really easy to divert the water. It's really hard to divert the snow. With that roof line coming back against our property that's already there, my roof line is already set. This roof line is going to come back and dump a lot of snow in there. This property also faces to the north to try to remove the snow, which is a big concern and difficulty. So I'm just concerned about the two buildings when they get built, about possible ice dams in between them. The water, not so much of a concern, but that's a big concern of mine. And then also the intersection on the visibility coming around the corner as we're backing in a lot of heavy equipment in and out. And we're at risk right now in that area with people coming around. It's hard on the visibility now to get trucks and trailers into that facility. So those are basically my concerns at this point.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Ms. Scott, would you like to comment on it? So, okay. Give your address as well.
My home address is 1913 Crescent Hills Drive, La Crescent, Minnesota.
Okay.
I've owned this property since 1991.
Can you speak into the
Oh,
microphone
sorry.
a little bit there?
I've owned the property since 1991. The traffic problem has always been there. When Norplex owned the building across the street from us, we had big semis coming in for their property. Now Isola's over there. We have big problems across the street. And then there's I don't even know how to say their name. They have huge trucks that also come in. So they always, our property, Hood comes this way, and then Miller. So they're always backing down Miller, crossing Hood, and cutting it off to get into their property. If you look at the diagram, the new buildings are not any closer to Hood Street than our present buildings are. If you look at the diagram, the buildings aren't any closer to Miller Street to the east, toward that corner, than the building we have now. If you also look at that, with the way we have it configured, all traffic for our property will come only in on Hood Street. The Miller Street exit that is there presently will no longer be there. So we'll be cutting that mess, because you come around that corner and it's within probably 50 yards is the next cut-in so we can go in the back of our property. That won't be there anymore. When you talk about water, our land is a little bit lower than the Gunderson property behind us and also Kurt's to the west of us. So Kurt's water off of his building comes onto my land, goes across my property, and goes down into the storage system. His water's not my problem. That's his problem. We've never addressed it in all the years he's been there. It's kind of the way life is. With the property with the building we're putting up, between the setback between his property and our property will be the retaining ditch with gravel, which is going to take care of my water. Is it going to take care of his water? That's not for me to figure out. That's for him to figure out. And when there is a lot of rain, when there's a lot of snow, as he said, that is an issue. But that's because his water's coming over onto our property, and there's only so far it can go. When I talk to Brickell, because this is a concern of mine, they will be grading the land, so the water will be coming from the south and from the west toward the center of my property and then going out like it does now, but to a greater slant than what it is. So it'll keep that water away from his property or from Gunderson's property. Let's see, we talked about the setback of the buildings just the way it is. Accidents, I've been there since 91. We might have had maybe a couple minor fender benders, but I've never heard of an accident where the police had to be called and so on. It is a busy intersection. I totally get that. Storage units are right across the street. Edward Storage, they've been across the street for lots of years. So when you come talk about storage units, they're right across the street, so we're not doing anything different there. Your visibility triangle, I would presume we have it, because that property's been there. The big building, which is the garage, it's an 80 by 50 building, that was Cassidy Auto Body way back in the day. That's who we bought the property from. We haven't changed that building. So if the visual triangle was there when he put that building up, it must still be there, because we haven't changed anything. When the new buildings go up, we're in the same location. We're going to have that same green space in front and to the east as we do now. So that visual triangle isn't going to be changed there either. Any questions for me?
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Would you two gentlemen like to rebuttal on that? Any objections to what was said? No? You have a chance to do that. 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, it's Kirk Donsky again. In reference to that visual triangle, then I guess the drawings of Brickell Brothers must be wrong, or it must be out of scale or something like that, because you can see on the other drawing, the official drawings from the city, it looks significantly different. So if those are correct and the property is going to be the exact same spot or the new building's the exact same spot, then as you said, that visual triangle might be not a factor. But that was, again, still my biggest issue was that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Go ahead, question. Councilmember Podesky?
I apologize, sorry, I forgot your name, but the second owner that spoke?
Kurt.
Kurt, could you come up to the thing a second, please? Thank you. What she said about the water, does that alleviate any of your concerns, or I'm just curious about your thoughts on it?
Yeah, just as long as somebody's got some good calculation of the water. The water's the easy part. It's the heavy snow load this winter that we struggled with in there. That's a big concern when these buildings get tighter together. Everybody forgets about the snow. Water is an issue. The snow depends on, it can be a real issue between the two buildings. At being in the construction business, we see a lot of ice dams around buildings that never really get removed and forgotten about spaces, which this was one of them this winter. It took down my eaves trough on the side of the building. I'm trying to get that replaced. So it's an issue and it's a concern when the buildings are that tight together and the sun is never coming in there. Might June through September, we'll get some sun in there. But after that, there's no sun, and then things kind of deteriorate once the sun doesn't get down in there. So that's my concern. And the snow load coming in there and trying to get that removed. Those are the biggest concerns.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Oh, go ahead.
Then I have a question for Mr.
Let's have a motion to close public hearing first. Motion to close. Okay, Councilmember Podesky makes that motion, seconded by Councilmember Weaver to close. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Actually, my question is for Mr. Gillum. Since they talked about that, I know you've been staring at that line of vision pretty intently. Have you changed your thoughts on it, or do you have any other thoughts on it?
I don't. I think one of the things that might be somewhat deceiving on the Brickell Brothers sketch is just that the line that would indicate the edges of the road is really the right-of-way line, not the pavement edge. So there's quite a bit of space from the building to the actual roadway edge. And when I look at the dimension from the intersection of Miller Street and Hood Street, it appears that they have that 20 feet, but again, the Buildings and Safety Division will verify that as part of the building permit process.
Okay. Go ahead, Council President Gall.
Jason, if I may, this visual triangle that you're referring to, and given some of the comments that we've had here this evening, is this a standard that's been in place for many, many years? In other words, is the building that's there currently possibly have been built before that standard was in place, or do you believe that it would be consistent from when it was built for the building that exists and to what they're looking at doing now?
It's my understanding that provision's been in place a long time. I don't think that's a recent ordinance, but I don't know how it relates to the age of that particular building. I would suspect that there was something in place that would have required a vision setback at the time that former building was built. When I look at the air photo of the existing building, it looks pretty close to where the new one's going to be, but it's hard to tell because I'm looking at different scales on different drawings.
Go ahead, Councilmember Newmeister.
Thank you. I'm going to put my trust in both planning and the process. Looking at her drawings, she's going to have a storm area. I actually think it's going to be an enhancement to the area. And I rode down there, and if it's at the same spot that it is currently, there shouldn't be an issue at all, and I think they believe the same thing. It just looks from the drawings that it's out further, which was concerned. I'm going to make a motion to approve, and hopefully we can work together and move forward with this. Thank you.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Newmeister to approve, seconded by Councilmember Weaver. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, we are on to 190684, application of Western Technical College for a conditional use permit at 528 8th Street North and 714 Lacrosse Street, allowing demolition of structure to create green space for the campus. And I don't believe I have anyone here to speak on that. And the city planning, I believe, did approve that. Motion to approve by Councilmember Weaver, seconded by Councilmember Podesky. Discussion, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. One no. Okay, Councilmember Kalo votes no. Thank you. All right, 190702, certified survey map, lot 3 of the certified survey map recorded in volume 16 of La Crosse County Certified Survey Maps, page 70, as document number 1653041, and part of the southwest 1/4 of the northeast 1/4 of section 12 T15 North R7W, town of Shelby, La Crosse, Wisconsin, W5050 Knobloch Road, I believe. So, need a motion? Here, I sure can. Motion by Councilmember Newmeister, seconded by Councilmember Podesky to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. 190703, request of Mei Yong and Fen Lor for permission to apply for a combination Class B and liquor license at 1241 Badger Street. And I guess there's some confusion on this one. One person registered in opposition of the legislation, and it's Mei Yong Chong, 415 Hillcrest Drive. So I don't know if that is the same. Chong, it looks like it. Maybe they just, did you register incorrectly? You're in opposition of something we want to pass, or? Okay, so you are in favor of the legislation? Yeah. Okay, all right. So, need a motion to approve the legislation by... Pardon me? Okay, very good. All right. Motion by Councilmember Weaver, seconded by Councilmember Newmeister. All those in favor of approval, subject to compliance, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. All right, very good. Okay, next one is 190726, various license applications pursuant to Chapter 4, 6, and 10 of La Crosse Municipal Code for a remainder of the license period 2018-2019. And one person, Libby Spire of Shuby's Neighborhood Delicatessen, I believe, in favor of the legislation, only here to answer questions. Okay, so need a motion on that. Okay, motion by Councilmember Podesky, seconded by Councilmember Weaver. All those in favor, subject to compliance, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. 190727, various license applications pursuant to Chapter 4, 6, and 10 of La Crosse Municipal Code for license period 2019-20. Okay, Councilmember Weaver, seconded by Council President Goff. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. And 190755, an ordinance to amend section 103-137 parent A, 103-137 parent C, and 103-138 parent B, and repeal sections 103-14 parent B and 103-142 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of La Crosse to incorporate changes required by the State of Wisconsin Department of Safety and professional services related to the municipal electrical code. Motion by Council President Gall to approve, seconded by Council Member Weaver. Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carried. 190774, application of Our Corner Bar Incorporated doing business as Our Corner Bar for expansion of alcohol beverage license at 2104 George Street for a special event on August 17th, 2019. And motion by Council Member Podeski, seconded by Council Member Newmeister to approve, subject to compliance, and I believe there will not be any music outdoors whatsoever. There was a lot of confusion last year and a lot of noise complaints. So, okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. I believe we did hit it off. So, motion to adjourn. Second. I can do that, you know. Motion by Councilmember Podeski, second by Councilmember Weaver to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thanks you very much.